Welcome back to a brand new episode of Charm City Beat. The Ravens have done the impossible. Lamar Jackson has finally secured a win in the playoffs. We are on to the divisional round versus the Bills. Bills also having another amazing season. So it's just two, I think, in my opinion, even teams. I think they bring a lot of good things, different things. But we're going to have a pretty even matchup, and we're looking for a very good game. But before we get into that, we got to talk about it. It happened. We beat Tennessee in their field, man. There's no greater feeling, man. What were your thoughts?
I thought the logo stop was my favorite part of the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was fitting. It was a long time coming for this Titans team that's been imposing their will the last 365 days against this Ravens team. And it couldn't have come at a better time. Marcus Peters picks off Tannehill to secure this playoff win, giving Lamar Jackson his first victory. And it was after a really hard-fought game, which they kept Derrick Henry, King Henry, 2,000-yard rusher to 40 yards rushing on 19 carries. It's absurd. And then, the hold them to 3 points over the last three quarters. Hats off to the Baltimore Ravens for doing what I thought. I thought they would win, but to do it that dominantly actually makes me even more excited for the next couple of games, hopefully, that they can run the table.
Yeah, it looked like Ravens football out there. They were having fun. They're out, they were just running it up. Obviously we both had our doubts on what was going to happen, but yeah, incredible, just incredible. The run off the field. The makings of a true NFL rivalry here. I think we have the New England Ravens rivalry, in my opinion. That's how important of this game I think it is to us. I think we're going to see them in the playoffs in the future. I think this is a team that, it's only great football from here, in my opinion. John Harbaugh in the post-game interview actually mentioned that this was his favorite win, which is incredible. You think John Harbaugh, how many wins he's had, and winning the Super Bowl, winning the AFC Championship. This was the most important. Why do you think that is, Jordan? Any thoughts?
It's an interesting question, and it kind of shocked me when I heard it. But then I thought about it, and you can tell these players mean a lot to him. I feel like he inherited that football team back in 2012. It was still Ray Lewis. It was Ed Reed. They should have won the Super Bowl. They should have won the Super Bowl in 2006. They probably should have won it in 2004 and 2003 with those defenses. And so I feel like that team – it already had the pieces there, and John Harbaugh was more of a manager. I feel like now it's his team. He's been part of this draft process now for a decade now, and it's his guys, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and Lamar Jackson wears it on his sleeve, and he knows how much this game meant to Lamar Jackson, how much the players wanted this game for Lamar Jackson, and everything that happened last year with that 14-2 squad losing in that first playoff game to the Tennessee Titans. It was us against the world, and I feel like Harbaugh, he built that up in the locker room pregame and just postgame. It's obvious. He loves these guys, and I think it meant a lot to him more than any other win, I assume. Yeah.
I always say to my wife, we watch the postgame interviews, so you get to see the players and the coaches from a different viewpoint than you do like in the game. And I always tell her, as a former player, I would love to play for John Harbaugh. There's a lot of good coaches in the NFL, but I think just John Harbaugh and just how he is as a person. He's very personable. I truly believe he treats those players like family. He knows their backstories. He knows everything about them, and he's just that type of coach. So, yeah, that adds to what you were saying. This is his team. The old guard, I say the Brian Billick era is long gone. Those players are all retired. This is John Harbaugh's true team. This is even Ozzie Newsome's not even that involved as he was back in them days. So it's a completely different era. I think also, being banged in your jaw 2 times in a row definitely increased the importance of getting this victory. But, I don't know. It's just I honestly think it was just one of the best wins I've seen, honestly, just given the team we were playing, given what was on the line. And here we are this week in the divisional round versus the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Man,
And I'm thinking, look at this game, and this is a game where you don't want to get behind because it's the Buffalo Bills. But then they came back from 10 points against Tennessee Titans, which I think is a fact that can't be overlooked. is the fact that they finally came back from a deficit of double digits, which they've never done before with Lamar Jackson, which kind of blew my mind. But it just shows you how dominant the Ravens have been. They just haven't been in that situation enough to really – that sample size is too small, in my opinion. But they did it. And I think it took them a little bit to go warmed up. But once they got warmed up, they were scoring every time they had the football. They were keeping the Titans out of the end zone. And I think that's going to have to happen against Buffalo more so, because Buffalo can put points up in a hurry. Stephon Diggs is as good as anybody. And a 70-yard touchdown pass can happen like that. And I feel like the Ravens have to be open to that. What are you so pumped up about this game? What's got you revved up?
I'm pumped up, honestly, in my opinion. I think the Ravens wins this year. We've beaten good teams, but I think getting a win over Buffalo and making it to the AFC Championship, it's just another notch in the belt of what I think will be looked at as a historical season with COVID, everything on the line. If our defense can beat an offense with Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley lined up on opposite side of the field, and Josh Allen, who don't discredit him. This kid's an MVP candidate. He can run. He can throw. If the Ravens defense can do that, to me personally, it gives me all the confidence in the world, because you're talking about a team, probably not Kansas City, but you're talking about a team with very similar skill. You got good receivers. You got a quarterback that can do just about anything. In my opinion, that makes me more confident heading into next week, if we can get past this week. But heading in, taking against maybe a rematch against the Browns, but more likely the Chiefs, honestly.
Yeah, right there with you. This is an offense that, set records for the Buffalo Bills, which is hard to believe. It's a very old franchise. They made 4 Super Bowls ages ago. And they're back in the playoffs. They're pumped. They've got fans in the stands for this football game. And so I think the Ravens have to, do what they do best, which is just attack the football. They're going to blitz. They probably shouldn't blitz just based on Josh Allen's stats, but they're going to blitz. They're going to do what Ravens do, and they're going to, I think they're going to win this football game personally. I think they want a little bit more. They're a little bit more battle-tested. They've got a lot more players on the Ravens who have been in the playoffs. Calais Campbell, AFC Championship game. Whether it's, guys like Justin Tucker, at least leadership-wise, we're in the Super Bowl. Jimmy Smith was in the Super Bowl. He made that play. These are guys that you can lean on late in this football game for a play. And the Bills don't have that, so I'm very intrigued. I think you kind of saw that Colts game. The Bills looked a little bit like they were out of their element a little bit. I mean, the Colts should have won that football game. They kind of gave it away, and the Ravens are good enough to not do that. And so I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah, I mean, in all actuality, this probably should be a game that's in Baltimore against the Colts. We can all agree on that. But, again, I'm not going to count the Bills out. I am very hesitant to do that. I mean, this is a young team with a fan base that's absolutely insane. The Ravens are traveling again to a stadium where there are going to be at least a significant amount of fans compared to what they have been playing. So, but I think the Ravens, that battle tested what you were talking about. They got to play against Tennessee, which, in my opinion, in terms of fans in the stadium compared to not, because this season's been so crazy where certain cities have them and certain cities don't. I think the Ravens did just fine. I don't think the fans are going to be an issue. What I think is going to be an issue is honestly our inability to adapt if things aren't going the way we want it. How quickly can we adapt our game plan, hopefully maybe after a quarter or after the half? How quickly can we do that instead of doing Ravens football as we've seen in some games where we've fallen behind, where we just continue to do the same thing until we just run out? That's what I'm curious. I'm curious to see that from the coaches.
Yeah, I think the Ravens need to go in and just run the football early. And Royce, hopefully they get the ball first, to be honest with you. And they can kind of set that tune, because the Bills don't have the same defense. I mean, as bad as the Titans were statistically, they knew the Ravens intimately as any team in the NFL, honestly. And I think that's a big deal, because they knew exactly how to stop Lamar. They have a great blueprint of how to do it, because all those players did it twice already. The Bills really not so much. I mean, they played them last year, but they've lost some significant pieces from that defense that held Lamar Jackson to under 50 yards rushing. So I think the Ravens – and Lamar wasn't playing this good last year at this point in November. He's out of his mind right now. The whole team is – I think they're very confident. And so as long as the Ravens, move the football on the ground, take throws when they get them, right, they're going to be a tough out, because as good as the Bills' offense is, the Ravens are just as good. And so now the X factor does become whose defense is better. And I think the Ravens' defense is heads and shoulders better than Buffalo's defense. And so you're going to see a high-scoring game. I think the Ravens are going to be the ones who can control this.
Yeah, and it's for the exact reason, like you said, rushing the ball. Now, another element does play into this, and it's football, so we weather plays a huge part. It's Buffalo in the winter. It's January. It's the middle of January. It's freezing cold. You're on the Great Lakes. Chances are decent that there could be snow at this game. I don't think that's going to hurt the Ravens as much as some people may think. A kid from Florida may freeze up and not be the quarterback that he's been this season. I think it's actually going to work in their favor because the Ravens will be forced to run. And the Ravens do amazing things when the ball is on the ground. I think Lamar's going to have a good rushing game as long as he has the correct pair of cleats. I think we're going to see a decent rushing attack, and I think that's really what's going to be the key to winning this game. Controlling the clock, running the ball, and being able to adapt when we need to.
Yeah, and honestly, special teams too. I think Justin Tucker will be a huge asset in this whole. I know he missed a 52-yarder against Tennessee Titans, but I think when pushed on, the Bills missed a field goal, chip shot, and so I think he's not going to miss it. I think the Ravens' special teams could also play a big difference in this football game. And if it's a 3-point game, I'd rather have Justin Tucker than anyone on the planet.
Exactly. The kick that you mentioned, of course, we didn't mention it earlier. That was heartbreaking to watch because you could even see in his eyes, and he was hurt. That man was hurt, and we all were hurting for him. But no, I definitely would take Justin Tucker and a bind any day over any NFL kicker. Honestly, it's the best in history. What can you say? Now going into predictions, you and me had texted back and forth. And you're giving me your score, and I was like, I'm going to hold off. Well, I got the Ravens winning 35-27, and I honestly gave a little bit of a wedge. I think the game could be close. I think it could be a Justin Tucker kicking game, Justin Tucker to win it for us. But, no, I'm going to go with my gut, and I think the Ravens are definitely going to stay out ahead of the Bills. They're going to get out, and they're just going to keep the ball. But, yeah, I think definitely 35-27.
Personally, I'm always afraid that something fluky is going to happen. It seems like it always does. A tip is going to get picked, and the Bills are going to score. Something stupid. It always happens, and I feel like it could happen early. But the Ravens showed me against Tennessee that can happen. They went down 10-0, and they can come back and they can score. But I also think that win they needed to go down early. They needed to get punched early. Yeah. It's kind of the quarterback getting that first hit. Once they get hit, they're in the zone. They're ready to go. I think that's what the Ravens needed, and I think now they got that. I think they're going to end up coasting in this football game. That being said, I still think it's not that big, a 7-point game. I had the Ravens winning 31-24. Maybe the Bills have a chance to tie it late, like the Titans kind of did, and they can't convert it. And I think that's what's probably going to happen in this football game too, is the Ravens come away with. Because, Josh Allen, he has 8 or 9 fumbles this year, and I can see him putting one on the ground against the Ravens in a big key situation.
I definitely think so. I think that's pretty on par for what could happen. Now, I don't usually spend a lot of time here. We don't do a lot of time talking about other teams on this specific show. But I got to ask. It's the AFC North rivalry. What happened last week in Pittsburgh, man? I just got to ask. What the hell happened?
I think as soon as Pouncey airmailed that football, it was over. I think the Browns smelled blood in the water. And they just attacked, and they took their foot off the pedal, which I think was why the game got as close as it did. Yeah. I was actually worried they were going to lose that game. But you can tell they're two different teams going in two different directions. Yeah. And that was probably the last real good game you're going to see, Ben. I can't see the Steelers making the playoffs next year. Now with an improved Cincinnati team and probably Houston making a comeback. And I just don't see it personally. I think that was it. I think you're going to see Pouncey retire. The Steelers are going to have some hard decisions to make with that cap. And they've got some prima donnas on that offense in Claypool and Schuster that they've got issues, man. It's deep, and I wonder if Tomlin can handle it much longer. What were your thoughts? As a Ravens fan, seeing your two rivals.
Yeah. So first off, it was wild as shit. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. That was the wildest thing I've ever seen. I've been watching football since I was a little kid, and I don't think I've ever seen a playoff game go that crazy. It literally looked like me playing Madden on franchise. Even on all Madden, and you're just blowing out the computer. Like, everything and anything's going right. Let's run up the clock. Let's score 30 points before the half. And it was just like, this isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know they've had issues the last few weeks, but there is no way in the playoffs, Ben Roethlisberger. I even had a friend of mine actually post on Facebook. They're like, what do you mean? Don't jump the gun yet. Like I'm talking all types of shit on Facebook that night. I don't have a dog in the fight. I couldn't care less. But I'm posting, and this girl she's like, don't you know Ben in the playoffs? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I guess, but that Ben never showed up, in my opinion. And, I remember we're watching the last few minutes, and he's sitting on the bench. I was like, this may very well be Ben Roethlisberger's last game. If I had to put money on it, it's either going to go Ben Roethlisberger's going to go through some extreme makeover and just bulk up or get more lean and show up next season, or he's literally just going to fly off into the sunset. I think it's going to be more of a sunset type situation, honestly. I think after last year's injury and having to bounce back, I think it took a toll on him, and I don't see. I think the era's over, honestly. The receivers, that's for another show. There's not enough time for me to talk about this too.
Yeah, I mean, I respect Ben Roethlisberger to a point. I mean, he's got nothing to prove. He's got 2 Super Bowl championships. I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest Pittsburgh Steelers to ever play the football game. And the writing's on the wall. They're not going to get any better. They're not getting more players in this team. They've got to pay Devin Bush. They're not bringing Schuster back because they got to pay him. Claypool's mounting up, and he's going to get guarded by the number 1s next year. They have no running game. Offensive line, Big Ben's hurt. Yeah, I mean, I think he should walk away. The Steelers, they're a good franchise. Give them a couple of years, they'll be better than the Bengals. But it's just what it is, And we'll see what happens. But I think it's the Browns and Ravens now in the AFC North, as crazy as that is.
I never ever thought I would see it a day, but I'm telling you, that quarterback class that Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen came out of, easily one of the best quarterback draft classes we've seen in recent history. And what was it? Sam Darnold's in that mix. And I honestly think Sam Darnold with a better team is a better – you're going to see a better quarterback out of him, I think, honestly. I think if he ends up probably getting traded away or whatever, I honestly think he could probably reach that. He has the skills, in my opinion. I just think the Jets are a terrible franchise. But there's a lot to be said about that quarterback class and just, 3 young men we have in that playoffs. But nonetheless, I got to ride with mine, Lamar Jackson. But I think I honestly think the Browns could potentially beat the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised. I was very impressed by them.
And the irony of it is, after going 14-2 last year and having it on a platter to host the AFC title game for the first time in franchise history, the year that they go 6-5 and barely make it in, they host the AFC title game against the Browns. How 2020 is that? But
that is so
that's putting the cart way before the horse there.
Yeah, we don't want to jump too far, but you like to start talking theoreticals. And on that note, we're going to cut the show before we jinx us somehow. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to have another episode of Third and Goal coming out later this week. We're going to talk about the rest of the 4 games in the playoffs this weekend. But, yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and go Ravens.